early on, and Dom was really getting into me about that. But then Wigan went up the other end, scored on pretty much their next attacking set, probably 3 or 4 minutes
And that was
later.
the point where we got to see Ronnie the Rhino with his head in his hands.
Yeah, exactly. Because they were so busy gloating in my direction, and then it turned around so quickly. But yeah, Alan, what did you make of the game in between, like, the Leeds tries? Were Wigan that dominant in that patch, like Tim says?
Yeah, I mean, you have to say that they did control it. They looked like the better team. You couldn't really see a way for Leeds back into it. But yeah, as you said, it was a bit of a...
I think it was probably fitness, to be honest.
Do you think?
Leeds just looked a little bit fitter. I think it was probably because they had a bit of age on their side. They would probably, I don't know, but looking at them, they generally look like they're the younger and slightly fitter side.
They have a slightly, I think they have a slightly more mobile pack than Wigan. Wigan have 3 or 4 big bodies in the middle, and whilst that has worked for them all year, obviously in a big final on a full length pitch, and also running against the wind for the whole second half, the longest half of rugby league I'd ever experienced until we got to Old Trafford. And
I was going to say until a few hours later. Yeah.
Yeah, I think fitness maybe was one of the factors.
And it was interesting because I half think that Gemma Walsh should probably have gone off because she was clattered and she did not look good. She was clutching her ribs and looked in a lot of pain to me. Because it was quite close to where we were.
Yeah.
And to me, as soon as she was sparked out, I thought, right, that's it, she's done.
I told you she wasn't going off, though, didn't I?
You did repeatedly tell me that she wasn't going off.
I pretty much called everything in this game. I was the Nostradamus for this game. Right down to the 2 players of the match.
The joint players of the match, yeah.
Alan, do you think that was the right call, the players of the match? Do you think those 2, Becky Greenfield, the Wigan fullback, and Rachel Thompson, Wigan's hat-trick hero, number 3, in the centres there, do you think they were the right calls for...
It was almost like you'd pick them.
Yeah. Well, scoring a hat-trick never does you a chance of getting player of the match any harm, does it? But yeah, no, I think Wigan had the dominant players. But again, it was more of a there's echoes with the men's grand final in terms of Wigan being a better whole than they are in terms of their constituent parts, whereas Leeds had a couple of outstanding individuals who did some outstanding individual things to score their tries.
Yeah, there was a callback to the Challenge Cup final as well, wasn't there, with Sophie Robinson having to be carried off.
Yeah,
that was the second final she's come off in, and I think that did sort of shake Leeds a little bit, that they didn't have that slightly more controlling head in the centre.
Yeah, definitely. They've had a few crucial players go out through injury, haven't they? Which you can't overlook for this Leeds side. Whereas Wigan were fairly close to their best side from what I've seen of their players this season. But that's that set play that basically created all 3 of Wigan's tries. Gemma Walsh to Rachel Thompson just worked a charm like it had done the week before against St Helens as well, to be completely fair. And Rachel Thompson, boy, she knows how to hit a line and she knows how to find a gap. I mean, she was up against one of Leeds' best players from this season, really, wasn't she? In Charlotte Booth, is it Charlotte Booth?
Yeah, Charlotte Booth. Yeah, who had a really good game, actually. She was getting involved in a lot of things.
Yeah,
and was really wrapping around on everything.
One thing she couldn't do is stop Rachel Thompson's step, which just got right inside her every time. I mean, fantastic plays put on by the Wigan attack close to the line, and also Wigan's other try scorer we should mention, Georgia Wilson. She's probably the skinniest player on the pitch, I would say, along with maybe Caitlin Beavers, who's only about 12, so got a lot of growing up to do yet.
And Caitlin Beavers is a bit taller as well.
Yeah, the giraffe is what you called her.
That wasn't what I called her, wasn't it?
but yeah,
it was meant affectionately, and I was, in honour of Steve Menzies, was shouting "Viva la Beavers" as she was off on her run.
Yeah, she was. I mean, yeah, but George Wilson, but physically she matched up really well all game against Sophie Robinson. We're talking about a player who's like, obviously it's an amateur game, but Sophie Robinson's been one of the star performers throughout the season. and a much bigger player, a much more probably matured player than Georgia Wilson, who I remember her not really understanding how to play a ball in the first game of the season against Featherstone, and to go from a nervous wreck on the pitch, like she looked like then, to being totally assured and physically in control and all of that, and to absorb all of that, and then to take a chance down the other end so well and score that try that Becky Greenfield set up with a beautiful lob pass over the top, then every credit to her. She's been a real emerging talent that's only going to get better from the women's game side of things. It was that it did feel like Leeds were going to win it though, didn't it, those last 10-12 minutes? It did,
yeah. Just because they were sort of upping the momentum, and their pace was coming up. And they did have the wind, yeah. But it's particularly, I thought what impressed me was the 2 second rows for Leeds as well. Nina Spare and Amy Staveley, they I thought ran really good lines, and they did very well in defence and kind of marshalling that defence. I thought they did a great job at that, especially when against some of the more tricksy players from Wigan.
So, Alan, the penalty. What do we say about it over the
what do we say? Well, it feels inexplicable because of its, as you said, it had been something that had been, I think there'd been offside most of the game, both sides, and to give it at the time they gave the penalty, bearing in mind that the referee is also the timekeeper at this game, so he knows exactly how long to go. It just feels like a very odd decision to. He had a
very strong game up to that point, hadn't he, as well?
Oh yeah. I'd not noticed anything.
Let it go.
Particularly inconsistent. He'd done very well to keep the ball moving and not pulled up a few. I mean, there was some sloppy play the balls. Certainly, towards the end of the first half, there was some pretty rubbish play the balls. But fair play. He was consistent to both sides. He kept it going.
Yeah,
up until
there was an allowance for the conditions, wasn't there? In terms of that, which when you've
got a crowd like that is much better, because it does keep everybody entertained.
But they weren't miles offside, weren't they? Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, they were absolutely miles. They weren't square and they were miles offside. But like we say, it had happened so often in the game, and to give it, I mean, it was not a gimme kick. It was 20 metres out, and it was pretty much in front of the sticks. But the wind, the way it was blowing, it blew. I mean, the nerves of steel for Foley. I thought it was Davis kicking, because she'd kicked most of the year, but she'd missed her chances in the first half, and they gave it to Foley, who wears number 9, comes off the bench, but plays in a variety of positions. Very multi-talented player, but very nerves of steel to kick that, especially after the ball fell off the tee, Alan.
Well, it was. I'm not downplaying the kick, and it was a good kick and everything. I just wonder if the referee was a bit worried about if we were going to get into a drop goal-a-thon, and how long would have been there, whether they'd have been playing the men's game by the time they'd got off the pitch.
Do you think he was really a Warrington fan, and he wanted to make sure he got in just in case? Yeah, just so he could be sure it was their year.
I mean, one last word on this game then from both of you. Tim, first, do you think this was the fair result, though, even though the penalty was a little bit controversial?
I think it was, because I think overall, if you look at the team performance throughout the whole game, Wigan were ahead, because in that first, after they scored the try, really, Leeds were nowhere. After they'd scored that first try, for large portions of that first half, they were just inconsequential. So I think that the fact they got back was testament to them. So equally, you couldn't have argued if they had snatched it at the end with the momentum they built. You would have argued, but the neutral observer would not have argued with it, and would have said that was fair enough, because they had come through in that end zone. But I think they missed. They missed the players that were out injured, really, was probably what did for them. I think not having that stabilising presence in the middle of Danica Prim probably cost them to an extent, and obviously having...
why don't you just propose for her and get it done with?
And any side missing Lois Vassell is always going to be weaker, because she's three players in one, really, because she's coaching out on the pitch, and she's able to effectively marshal and act as an extra half back, as well as playing at 9.
It's like Leeds without Roby. It's like Wigan without O'Loughlin. It's that big a
It's that linchpin player. Yeah.
Alan, sort of same question to you. Do you think Wigan were deserved winners in the end? And what did you take away from your sort of, I think, first experience of this kind of level of the ladies' game?
Yeah, well, these were the first. Obviously, I saw the game before. These were the first two games I'd seen entirely. I'd seen bits and pieces of the Challenge Cup final. I can't argue with Wigan winning it overall. 4-3. I think they kind of deserved it. And Tim's right about Leeds kind of disappearing out of the contest for vast periods of it. But yeah, they did come roaring back, and they just had all the momentum. I just thought they were going to pinch it, but the ref intervened. There you go.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well,
we'll leave the last word to you, and obviously we're going to have a 10-minute eulogy about Becky Greenfield.
I tell you what, in those testing conditions, she didn't make a mistake. She didn't make a single error on kicks. She was great running the ball back out of her own, and she fully justified why she's in the England squad and why I've been talking about her all year, in my eyes. But Rachel Thompson was outstanding. Her finishing ability was great, and I think it was the fair result. I think for 60.
And I did hear other people who weren't just you saying, why is she not in the England squad?
Exactly. And I think for 65 minutes of the game, Wigan were definitely the better side on the field, so deserved the win on balance. The promotion relegation playoff. Well,
it was nice. It was nice to, just the final word. It was nice to get to deploy the ref's fault scarf as well from this week in league. Just stood there, arms aloft.
Shout out to our
It's quite good.
Promotion relegation playoff, the invented game that didn't need to be, was played on Sunday. It finished Swinton 33, Workington 20. Both sides were able to field full 17 sides. Swinton assisted by their dual reg partnership with Wigan. Some of the players that have played a large number of games for them throughout the season, in particular Josh Woods and Liam Paisley, were back in the Swinton side, and Josh Woods was crucial in the closing stages, scoring the go-ahead try, the drop goal, that kind of, and the try and the drop goal that sealed it really came from Josh Woods. Workington scored 20 in the game. They scored an absolutely fantastic try. I would say everyone try and check out, if you can find footage of it, probably through the Swinton Lions media stuff. The try that was scored just before not just before half time, it was about 5 minutes before half time, by Workington, was a full width and length of the field kind of affair. A very, very good try. Get your eyes around that. But Swinton, in the end, were just that bit better and just that bit fitter. I mean, Workington named a 17 after telling us all week that they maybe only had 11 or 12 players, but two of the players off the bench definitely were not fit. I mean, it says in the match reviews that they were all used, but I can't remember Sean Penkovic coming onto the pitch, and if he did, he probably came on, threw one pass and went off. Like, he was that hobbled, he couldn't do it. A couple of their subs were able to play extended minutes, but they did lose a player to injury as well during the game, which didn't help them in that regard. So, credit to Workington, credit to their fans as well, who made up probably 40% of the 750 or so that were there at Hayward Road. There was
703.
Yeah. So it was probably about 40% Workington fans, 40% Swinton fans, and then 20% neutrals, maybe 45 of each, and then 10% neutrals. But yeah, it was a very, very entertaining game. Swinton just had a bit more, which is what you would expect, both with the injury situation and the holidays for Workington, and the fact that Swinton are a championship side and have a few full-timers that they're able to bring in from their dual reg partners at Wigan. But a thoroughly entertaining game, a very enjoyable afternoon, and I was pleased with the outcome. But credit to the Workington fans who travelled down. They made a lot of noise, especially in the first half. Things started to go against them in the second half. They weren't so noisy, but credit to everyone that was involved in the game for pulling off a fantastic occasion, given that it never was supposed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, game for 703 people, and to get that close is really good.
Yeah, you've got to give Workington credit really for, all the machinations about 12 players, 10 players, digging players up to play or whatever. But actually, they made it a contest, didn't they? So
it did. It was only in the last 5 minutes that Swinton pulled away. I mean, the last try that Rodri Lloyd scored was basically as the hooter was not quite ready to go, but not far off.